Ever get that feeling like, uh, you know, some of your favorite brands can practically read your mind? It's
Yeah.
like they know what you want even before you do.
Yeah.
That's the world of hyper-personalization, and that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Okay.
It's fascinating,
Yeah.
a little bit freaky, and definitely something I think we all need to understand a little bit better.
Right.
Now, this deep dive is all about getting you up to speed on exactly what hyper-personalization is,
Right.
how it actually works, and what it really means for you as a consumer.
Mm.
We'll be looking at the benefits, the potential downsides, and some real-world examples of how it's being used today.
Okay. Sounds good.
To help us navigate this complex landscape, I've got an expert here who can really break it all down for us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Hyper-personalization is a rapidly evolving field,
Yeah.
and it's raising some really important questions about data, privacy, and the future of how we actually interact with brands.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is hyper-personalization? Is it just fancy marketing speak? Or is
Well,
there something more to it?
it's definitely more than just buzzwords.
Okay.
It takes the idea of personalized marketing, you know,
Yeah.
to a whole new level. Think of it this way. Instead of being grouped with a bunch of other customers in a
Sure.
broad segment, hyper-personalization treats you as a unique individual
Okay.
with your own very specific needs and preferences.
So it's not just about getting a generic 20% off email blast anymore.
Exactly. It's about creating an experience that's tailored to you,
Mm-hmm.
using data to understand your past behavior,
Mm-hmm.
predict your future needs,
Okay.
and then deliver content, offers, and interactions that are truly relevant to you
Right.
at that moment.
So how does it actually work in practice? What's going on behind the scenes to make this
Okay.
hyper-personalization magic happen?
Well, it all starts with data, of course. Companies are collecting vast amounts of information about you
Mm-hmm.
from your online activity, your purchase history,
Yeah.
your social media interactions, even things like your location. Wow. And the time of day you're most active.
They really are tracking everything.
Yeah.
But what do they do with all that data?
Well, that's where the real magic comes in.
Okay.
They use sophisticated algorithms and AI-powered tools to analyze all of that data and look for patterns.
Mm-hmm.
These tools can actually predict your future behavior with a surprising degree of accuracy.
So it's like having a personal fortune teller for your shopping habits.
You could say that.
Tell me more about these algorithms and how they actually work.
Imagine like Netflix's recommendation engine,
Okay.
but on steroids. These algorithms can take all those data points,
Mm-hmm.
your past purchases, the things you've browsed, even the time you spend looking at certain products,
Wow.
and use that to figure out what you're most likely to want next.
That's pretty amazing, but also a little unnerving.
Mhm.
It sounds like these companies know us better than we know ourselves.
Right.
But okay, let's say they've got all this data and they've run it through their super smart algorithms.
Yeah.
What happens next? How do they actually use that to personalize my experience?
That's where real-time personalization comes in. This means that the content you see, the offers you receive,
Yeah.
even the entire layout of a website or app can be adjusted on the fly based on what the algorithms have learned about you.
So give me a real world example. What would this look like for me as a consumer?
Okay, let's say you're browsing an online clothing store.
Okay.
With hyper-personalization, the website might show you items that are similar to ones you've purchased before, or items that other shoppers with similar tastes have bought.
Okay.
And all the recommendations you see will be unique to you,
Right.
based on your individual preferences and browsing history.
Okay. I can see how that would be convenient.
Yeah.
But how does this go beyond just product recommendations? What are some other ways that this hyper-personalization thing is showing up in our lives?
Well, think about the emails you receive from brands.
Okay.
With hyper-personalization, those emails can be tailored to your interests,
Yeah.
your past purchases, even your location.
Right.
You might get an email promoting a sale on your favorite brand of coffee,
Mm-hmm.
just as you're walking past a coffee shop,
Wow.
or a reminder to reorder a product you frequently buy.
So it's not just about what they're showing me, but also about when and where they're showing it to me.
Exactly. It's about creating a seamless and personalized experience that feels relevant and valuable to you at every touch point.
This is all starting to make sense, but I have to admit, the idea of companies having all of this information about me
Right.
and using it to shape my experiences is a little bit unsettling.
Yeah.
What are some of the potential downsides or risks we should be thinking about?
You've hit on a key point. While hyper-personalization can offer a lot of benefits, it also raises important questions about privacy, data security,
Yeah.
and the potential for manipulation.
Okay, let's dive into those concerns. What are some of the specific risks associated with hyper-personalization?
Okay.
And how do we ensure that this technology is being used responsibly? We'll unpack all of that right after this. So we've talked about the how of hyper-personalization, but now I want to talk about the should we part.
Okay.
What are some of the potential risks we should be thinking about?
Well, one of the biggest concerns with all of this is privacy.
Okay.
When companies collect and analyze this much data about us,
Yeah.
it raises questions about, who has access to that information,
Mhm.
how securely it's being stored,
Right.
and how it might be used beyond just providing personalized experiences.
Okay, so data security is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
What about the way that this data is being used? Are there any risks associated with the personalization itself?
Absolutely. There's the potential for what we call filter bubbles,
Okay.
where we're only exposed to information and products that align with our existing preferences.
Yeah.
And this can limit our exposure to new ideas and diverse perspectives, potentially narrowing our worldviews without us even realizing it.
So like being stuck in an echo chamber of our own making.
Exactly.
That's a little scary. How does that actually happen with hyper-personalization?
Well, let's go back to that example of the online clothing store.
Okay.
If the algorithm only shows you items similar to what you've bought before,
Yeah.
you might miss out on styles you might actually love,
Right.
but haven't considered yet. Over time, this can create a self-reinforcing cycle where you're only exposed to a limited range of options, which might not reflect the full spectrum of your potential interests.
So the more the algorithm personalizes, the less we might actually discover new things.
Yeah.
That's pretty counterintuitive.
It is. And it's not just about shopping. This can apply to news feeds, social media recommendations, even search results.
Yeah.
If we're only seeing information that confirms our existing beliefs and biases, it can make it harder to engage in critical thinking and have productive conversations with people who hold different viewpoints.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
It sounds like hyper-personalization could actually make it harder to connect with people who are different from us.
Right.
Are there any other risks we should be aware of?
Well, another concern is the potential for manipulation.
Okay.
If companies know our preferences so well,
Right.
they can use that information to nudge us towards certain choices, even if those choices aren't necessarily in our best interests.
Okay, give me an example of how that might play out in real life.
Okay. Imagine you're using a fitness tracker that's connected to a health insurance app. The app might notice that you're not meeting your daily step goals,
Right.
and then start sending you targeted ads for unhealthy snacks,
Okay.
knowing that you're more likely to indulge when you're feeling discouraged.
Wow, that's sneaky.
Yeah.
It feels like a violation of trust when companies use our own data against us like that.
Exactly. And that's why transparency is so important. Consumers need to be aware of what data is being collected,
Right.
how it's being used,
Yeah.
and have the ability to opt out of certain types of personalization if they're not comfortable with it.
Transparency is a word we hear a lot these days. But what does it actually look like in the context of hyper-personalization?
Well, it means companies being upfront about their data collection practices,
Right.
explaining how their algorithms work, and giving users control over their data and preferences.
Okay.
For example, some social media platforms allow users to see why certain posts are showing up in their feeds,
Right.
giving them a glimpse into how the algorithm is making decisions.
So it's not just about having a privacy policy buried somewhere on their website. It's about actively communicating with users and empowering them to make informed choices.
Precisely. And it also means giving users the option to adjust their settings
Right.
or opt out of certain types of personalization if they don't feel comfortable with it.
Okay, so transparency and user control are crucial.
Yes.
Are there any other safeguards or best practices that can help mitigate these risks?
Absolutely. Another important concept is privacy by design,
Okay.
which means that privacy considerations are baked into the development process from the very beginning, rather than being an afterthought.
So it's about building privacy into the very DNA of the technology.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology itself.
Yeah.
It's also about training employees on ethical data handling practices
Okay.
and ensuring that there are clear policies in place to protect user data.
It sounds like a lot of responsibility falls on the shoulders of these companies.
It does.
But what about us as consumers?
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to protect ourselves in this world of hyper-personalization?
Definitely. Being informed is the first step.
Okay.
Take the time to understand how hyper-personalization works, read privacy policies,
Sure.
and pay attention to the data permissions you're granting to apps and websites.
So don't just blindly click agree on those terms and conditions.
Right, and be mindful of the information you're sharing online. The more data you put out there, the more fuel you're giving these algorithms.
That's good advice.
Hmm.
So we've talked about the risks in some ways to mitigate them, but let's not forget that hyper-personalization also has the potential to be a really powerful tool for good.
Absolutely, when it's done right.
Right.
Hyper-personalization can enhance our lives in meaningful ways.
Mm-hmm.
It can help us discover new products and services we might love,
Yeah.
streamline our online experiences,
Right.
and even connect us with people who share our interests.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about some of the ways hyper-personalization is being used effectively and ethically. What are some real-world examples of companies getting it right? So we've talked about the potential downsides of hyper-personalization, but let's not forget that it can also be a force for good.
Right.
What are some examples of companies using it effectively and ethically?
Well, one great example is Spotify's Discover Weekly playlist.
Okay.
It analyzes your listening habits and then recommends new music you might enjoy.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic way to discover artists and genres you might not have found otherwise. Oh, I love Discover Weekly.
Yeah.
It's introduced me to so many new bands.
Right.
It feels like a personal DJ who knows my case better than I do.
Exactly. And it's a great example of hyper-personalization done right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not intrusive, it's genuinely helpful,
Yeah.
and it really enhances the user experience.
What about in the world of e-commerce? Any shining examples there?
Well, Amazon's recommendation engine is another one.
Yeah.
It's incredibly sophisticated and often scarily accurate.
Right.
It takes into account your purchase history, your browsing habits, even items you've just viewed to suggest products that you might be interested in.
I have to admit, I've discovered some great products through Amazon's recommendations.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like they're reading my mind.
They're definitely getting good at predicting our needs and desires.
Right.
But it's important to remember that we still have control over how much data we share
Yeah.
and how those recommendations actually influence our choices.
So it's a partnership in a way.
We provide the data, and then the algorithms help us navigate this overwhelming world of choices.
That's a good way to think about it. And the more feedback we provide, the better these systems become at meeting our individual needs.
It sounds like hyper-personalization is here to stay,
Yeah.
and it's going to continue to evolve.
All right.
What does the future hold for this technology? What can we expect to see in the coming years?
Well, we're already seeing the integration of conversational AI,
Okay.
making our interactions with brands more natural and personalized.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine chatting with a virtual assistant that not only knows your preferences, but can engage in a genuine dialogue with you,
Yeah.
helping you find exactly what you need.
So like having a personal shopper or a stylist available 24/7.
Exactly.
That'd be amazing.
And we can expect to see more omnichannel personalization, where your experience is seamlessly integrated across all touchpoints, whether you're shopping online, browsing social media, or interacting with a brand in the physical world.
So no matter where we turn, we'll be surrounded by personalized experiences tailored to our unique tastes and preferences.
In a sense, yes, but the key is that this personalization should be driven by our choices and preferences, not by algorithms that manipulate us or limit our exposure to new ideas.
That's a crucial point.
It is.
As hyper-personalization becomes more sophisticated, it's more important than ever to be aware of the potential risks
Right.
and advocate for ethical practices.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
The future of hyper-personalization isn't just about technological advancements. It's about ensuring that this technology is used responsibly, transparently, and in a way that benefits both consumers and businesses.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of hyper-personalization,
Okay?
what's the one key takeaway you want our listener to remember?
I think the one key takeaway is that hyper-personalization has the power to enhance our lives.
Okay.
Connect us with things we love,
Yeah.
and simplify our daily experiences, but it's crucial to be informed, aware of the potential risks, and actively participate in shaping how this technology evolves.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Adjust your settings, and demand transparency from the companies collecting your data.
Right.
The future of hyper-personalization is ultimately in our hands.
That's a great point to end on.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into hyper-personalization.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listener, we hope this has given you a better understanding of this powerful technology and inspired you to think critically about your own relationship with personalized experiences. Until next time, Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.